So this is me. Yeah, you just heard the introduction. My name is Janna. I work for Divine Robot. And those two are my babies. They're 4 years old now, though. This is Henrik, my husband. And this is Nils. And Nils and Henrik, they actually started Divine Robot in about 2009. They both had a company together in the 90s, but they stopped working together in 1999. However, 10 years later, in 2009, they found each other on Facebook, and Nils was going through his 40-year-old life crisis, where he quit his job, stopped everything that he was doing, and wanted to start all over again. And at this time, the App Store was opened up for indie developers as well, and people could get billions of downloads from a very simple app like drinking a beer. So he approached Henrik again and said, why don't we make a game for the App Store? Now, the thing was that every time that Nils learned a new programming language, he made a kind of retro-style arcade game just to teach himself the new language. So he did this for iOS as well. So he had a very, very basic foundation, an idea about this kind of retro-style arcade shoot-'em-up game. Henrik did the graphics, and they created Evening Star. Now, what was the fuck up here? Then, basically, they thought it was going to be very quick to make this game. They worked a lot during about 8 months with the game, and when it was finally released in February 2010, what they hadn't realized was that the file size was too large, so it couldn't be downloaded over 3G. So basically, people would get this kind of message if they tried to download it over 3G, so they had to go home. We even got reviews saying, okay, I'm going to download it when I get back home, and then obviously people forgot about it. We worked with a PR agency in Belarus. They probably did what they could. We paid them about $3,000. What happened when it was released, you can see here, this is in the United States. It got to place 26 in role-playing games. This was a shoot-'em-up game, and 38 in racing. So in games number 487, and this was the first day, and then you see what happened. So basically, this PR agency, they gave us the suggestion that you should try and put it in the category of role-playing games and racing, because it's so much easier to get a higher rank in those categories, and then when you get good traction, you'll move it to another category. Well, I don't know. We got to place 1 in role-playing games in Israel for 1 day. And Mexico placed 12 role-playing games. Sweden, I don't know, 264. Did any of our friends even buy the game? I mean, we were living in London at the time, and we didn't really have a big network. Facebook wasn't as big, so maybe that's an excuse. Also, people didn't really appreciate the game controls. This was a quite diplomatic review, I guess. Since the game's controls are a bit unusual, the developers were kind enough to include a brief tutorial in the beginning that walks players through the game controls and how to use the ball. That's the spinning ball that this kind of spaceship uses to fight the enemies. So eventually, Evening Star died. A few years later, we decided to remove it from the App Store because there was a new iOS version released and it wasn't compatible. So because it at this time was selling maybe 1x a month, we decided it's not worth our time to update it. So what did we learn? Well, we realized that we didn't really know enough about people's gaming habits. None of us were actual kind of hardcore gamers ourselves. Maybe I was more of a gamer than the other two, but I wasn't really updated on what was going on. So, for instance, when people were crying out about, why don't you use OpenFaint? We were like, what? That was a social platform on iOS at the time. And Henrik even thought it was absurd. I mean, what do you mean online high scores? Who even cares about that shit these days? And there were coins in the game. I don't know if you saw in the screenshots, but you could hit enemies and there were coins appearing. So people were asking, I'm collecting all these coins, but there's no sort of currency system implemented in the game. I can't buy anything for the coins. And we were like, what do you mean buy things? We hadn't really started to think about the free-to-play trend. So, and I mean, we even got feedback before, speaking of the controls, people saying that the controls were pretty hard, but we thought we had such a good idea, so we didn't really care about what people thought at the time. So, I mean, really, you have to do your research if you want to break into this market. And we realized that to make a game in this kind of nerdy genre, it wasn't good enough. So basically what we did after releasing it, straight after releasing it basically, and it failed, we started the next game, which was called Blobster. So we thought let's focus on a casual game instead. We're gonna sort of widen the market a bit, and it's very difficult to publish a game yourself. We had learned from our mistakes, so we got a deal with Chilingo that is owned by Electronic Arts. So that was a bit of a different story. Anyway, what you can learn, I think, is really to listen to people, to listen to what people have to say about your game before you release it, while you're launching it, and afterwards. I mean, it's not that we didn't care about what people thought, but we wanted to still kind of keep our integrity and not start to make free-to-play games because everybody else was doing it at the time. However, we didn't have enough experience in the market to be able to go down that route. And also, I think that there's a big difference, or at least it's important to be aware of the difference between passion and business. It's good to have passion in your business, but I don't think that passion is enough, because even if you love your game, if you don't do the right things, nobody's going to buy it. And I mean, why even focus on, if you want to make, if the only thing you want to do is to do a good business, then why make games for people who don't care about your game, or people that you don't care about yourself? So it's good to be clear about those distinctions, I think. So now we've moved on even more, and now we're going to try to do children's games instead. Well, we are doing them, although we still do a lot of other work as well, so games are still a sort of small part of our business. But yeah, just keep doing what you like, and remember to listen, but you will fuck up.